We all have a niche anime which fanbase is so small, it seems like essentially nobody's heard of it. Although it might be unknown and might not be perfect, there's still a passion for it. Today, I will be reviewing the niche anime I'm passionate about, and hopefully this anime will get more reception. This anime is the fall 2005 romance series Lamune, which is assumed to have only around 30,000 viewers. Throughout this video, I will be talking about how good this anime is and if you should watch it too. For the sake of this video, I will try my best to keep it spoiler free with an exception of a spoiler segment which will have a warning before it occurs. To avoid any spoilers within this video, please refer to the timestamps in the description or on the pinned comment. To begin, let's shed a little light to the history of Lamune so you could get to know it a little bit better. Lamune was originally derived from the Japanese beverage Lamune, which is essentially just a carbonated drink. Lamune was first released as a Japanese adult visual novel for the PC on July 30, 2004 by Nico Soft.
Okay, so editor here, it turns out that the source material for this anime is literally a hentai. So it's interesting how they turned a hentai into a very wholesome anime.
It would later get ported to the PlayStation 2 on August 25, 2005 as a much more family-friendly version. On October 11, 2005, the visual novel was adapted by Trinit Entertainment and Picture Magic to a 12-episode anime series. Other notable anime these studios produced was Final Approach in 2004 and Penguin Musume Heart in 2008. Interestingly enough, it wasn't until after the anime was finished airing that its respecting manga and light novel was released. The manga was released on January 26, 2006, while the light novel was released on February 1, 2006. Both the manga and the light novel would only have one volume and would be published by completely different companies. Overall, the Lamune series received horrible feedback as barely anyone watched it and scored 6.83 out of 10 on my anime list. You'll find out soon enough if this anime deserved that score. As for the characters of Lamune, it actually has a fairly small cast. Lamune's main cast features Nanami Konoe, Kenji Tomosaka, Suzuka Tomosaka, Hitari Nakazato, and Hiromi Sakura. Kenji Tomosaka is our generic protagonist of the series. He is a mechanic and helps out the Konoe family's local restaurant. Nanami Konoe is the main love interest of the series. She is Kenji's childhood friend and works at a local farm for her family's restaurant. You can probably guess by the name, but Suzuka Tomosaka is Kenji's little sister. She's always seen by her brother's side and helps keep their unstable family together. Hitari Nakazato is Kenji's popular cousin. She is mostly there to cause trouble and try to get Kenji and Nanami closer. Finally, Hiromi Sakura is the romance rival of the series, but I won't say how her arc ends. As I usually do, I combine the music and animation into one section since it's the least I have to talk about. Beginning with the animation of Lamune, I'd say it seems like Trinit Animation took more of a lead on the art or style of Lamune. Lamune has that classic anime look to it, the kind you would expect a retro slice of life anime to look like. For the early 2000 era of anime, I'd say its animation was mid-range. It wasn't the worst for its time, but it also certainly wasn't the best. The character designs were really nice, but in my opinion, the color was lacking. Although the source material is a little hard to find, I'm going to remain hopeful that the designs were faithful to its source material. As for the music of this anime, Lamune features the opening Lamune Hero no Melody by Mayu and the ending Summer Vacation by Ayumi Murata. These artists are seemingly unknown and difficult to figure out what other music they wrote, but I'd say their performance for Lamune was okay. The opening by Mayu was a good wholesome opening and the ending by Ayumi Murata was mediocre. As for the OST of the anime, I'd say it's fairly generic and nothing really to write home about. All in all, I would say that Lamune had fairly good animation with some mediocre music to go alongside it. Lamune was a romance story about a small countryside town. Lamune's story seemed to have a heavy reliance on flashbacks at the beginning of the episode, which would somehow find a way to incorporate itself with whatever occurs within the episode, which in some circumstances felt kind of forced. These flashbacks also served to strengthen the relationships between the characters and help to explain why some characters act the way they do. The story does have a fairly slow start, but picks up in the second half whilst also getting fairly interesting near the end. Although Lamune aired for one season and received only 12 episodes, I'd say the story does feel completed. The writers completed all the plot lines introduced in the series and gave the fans essentially everything they would want in a romance anime. Alright, so it's time to get to the spoiler segment of this video. If you wish to avoid any spoilers, please go to the timestamp on screen or refer to the time cards in the description. Alright, so for those who are still here, let's talk about the story of Lamune, more specifically, the second half of the series. In the second half of the series, the typhoon episode was introduced. This episode showed us how much Nanami relied on Kenji, but also the lengths Kenji would go through for Nanami's safety. This was a strong episode and I personally really liked it. The result of this episode ended up with Nanami in the hospital though. A little time later, when it was time for Nanami to be discharged from the hospital, Kenji got into that car accident, causing him to fall into a coma. Although I felt this episode was powerful and emotional, I also felt like this was rushed as Nanami was literally just in the hospital. Even with these trailing arcs, the anime still managed to have a strong ending where Nanami and Kenji begin dating, something most anime fail to do these days. Although Lamune has a mysterious source material, which is fairly unknown to me, I'd say the writers did a fairly good job at piecing together the story and making something which had a fairly satisfying ending. As mentioned in the animation segment, I was a fan of the character designs, but the colors of the anime were lacking. Although its soundtrack was mediocre, I would say that its wholesome opening really fit the vibe the anime was going and really fit the country atmosphere the anime had. All things considered, I decided to give Lamune a 7 out of 10. Although I am passionate about Lamune, I just can't say it's perfect. The anime has many obvious flaws, but I wouldn't say it compromises the enjoyment of the watch. So, considering it got 6.88 out of 10 on my anime list, I would say that score was fairly deserved, even though I believe it could do with a couple of decimal boosts, but nonetheless, I would recommend Lamune if you are a fan of retro romance anime or just a romance fan in general. What do you think about Lamune? If you haven't seen it already, did I convince you to watch it? Let me know in the comments down below. If you liked the review or thought it was insightful, please consider liking the video or subscribing since it really helps me out a lot. There will be a poll hosted on my Twitter for my next review, so make sure you vote. You guys know you mean the world to me and I love and appreciate all of you. And as always, until next time, bye. 秘密秘密